How to sell your hemp products in all 50 states, or what I like to call the Goldilocks product. Hello, I'm Morgan Davis. I'm a cannabis attorney based in Raleigh, North Carolina. Let's talk about how to keep your business protected and thriving. Spoiler alert, you can't sell your products in all 50 states. Sorry. Idaho still, even today, doesn't allow hemp products to be sold pretty much in any form. So anybody who tells you they're selling their products in all 50 states, not possible. Not if you're doing it legally. But let's set Idaho aside. When the federal farm bill passed in 2018, it made hemp products at or below 0.3% Delta-9 THC legal. Asterisk, there are some people who would say it didn't. There are some courts who've said it does. That's a whole other long conversation. But let's assume the premise that it created all hemp and all hemp products under that Delta-9 THC limit as legal federally. What happened then, as we all know, is tons of different products exploded onto the scene. The market blew wide open. And there were no other regulations or real federal guidance. So states have since started to regulate products themselves. We've talked in lots of different videos about different regulatory frameworks and schemes and all the different stuff. So what you've now got is 50 different regulatory frameworks for hemp and hemp products. Some of them are similar. We can put them in categories, but it gets more and more varied every year. So creating one product that fits all, what I like to call the Goldilocks product, is practically impossible. There are lots of different things you need to consider when developing a product if you want to sell it in as many places as possible. So let's talk a little bit about the things that you need to consider when trying to come up with a product that is just right. First, choice of product type, whether it's an edible, or a beverage, or an inhalable, or flower. Product type is going to come up with a different answer from state to state as to whether or not it's permitted. Some states prohibit all smokable hemp products, flower or vape. That includes Louisiana, South Dakota, and Kentucky. Some states only ban smokable hemp products that are smoking related. So think of New York. New York allows vape products, but doesn't allow anything that promotes smoking, so no pre-rolls. Then you have some states that allow edibles, but they only allow edibles that have certain shapes or that are colorless, like Florida. Florida has recently passed laws that says everything's got to be colorless. Ew, who wants a colorless gummy? Some ban all hemp in food, period, saying that because the FDA hasn't permitted it at the federal level, that therefore hemp and hemp derivatives are not allowed in any type of food product. So product type will determine where you're permitted and where you're not. If you're a company with multiple products, that means some products will be allowed in some states and other products will be allowed in other states. Talk about a nightmare when trying to do inventory. Then you have to consider formulation of your product. Many states have banned Delta-8 and or all synthetic cannabinoids. See my videos on Delta-8, we've talked about that before. THC content. Some states demand that all products be THC free. Well, what does THC free mean? Does that mean no traceable amount of THC? How many decimal points do you have to go back to be THC free? Some states look at products based on the federal Delta-9 limit, so anything at or below 0.3% Delta-9 THC is fine. Other states have what's called a total THC standard, where they take into account the Delta-9 THC and THCA content of end products. So now you're formulating not only based on product type, but THC and what standard are you trying to comply with? Because your formulation is going to be very different if you're formulating for total THC versus Delta-9 THC. And if your formulation is different, it's going to change your flavoring. It's going to change the concentration of everything else you put in it. It's not like you can just say, oh, well, I'm just going to make this one for this one. It changes everything when formulating a product, especially an edible product. Then we move on to packaging and labeling and testing. It's been very popular in the last 18 months for states to start to come up with pretty robust regulatory frameworks for packaging, labeling, and testing. Now, there's a little bit of good news here. Some of those states have come up with extremely intense regulatory frameworks, i.e. Kentucky, where basically they took some of the regulated cannabis standards and are now applying it to hemp. You could find one of the extremely stringent or extremely burdensome frameworks that exist in the United States, comply with that, and most likely you're going to be good pretty much everywhere. But it's going to require a plethora of warnings, a specifically formatted text on your packaging, specific packaging in terms of child resistance, and a very robust testing regimen, which is not required in a lot of places. Most people these days are going with a straight up potency test, or they might do some additional testing in terms of molds and heavy metals, et cetera, on an end product. These testing requirements go well beyond that, especially for inhalable products. Finally, licensing, pre-registration, or both. Some states require that prior to you selling a product in their state, you have to actually obtain a retail license, even if you're just selling online. West Virginia, Louisiana, these are examples of that. Some states require that you get pre-approval for your product before you sell it into the state, even if you're just distributing through wholesale or online. Think of Utah. So now, and then some states require both, West Virginia. If you have to do that, then prior to once you've formulated your product, you've figured out the testing, you've figured out the labeling, you've decided all of that, then in order to decide where you're going to put it, before you can put it there, you need to determine, do I need a license in that state? Do I have to get pre-approval for my product? If so, what's that going to cost me? Because generally it's a couple $100 in each state. If you have multiple SKUs, that number starts getting pretty large pretty quickly when you want to have a nationally distributed product. So having the Goldilocks product that you want to put everywhere is a heavier and heavier burden. Dreaming up and formulating a product is hard. Add this whole new multi-layered regulatory compliance rubric that we're now having to work with, makes it even harder. Don't wait until you've got 4 pallets of product sitting in your warehouse waiting to be shipped and you realize you can't send it to half the places you wanted to send it to. Or worse, you already did, and now you're getting feedback from distributors that they have to pull your product off the shelf, or retailers that are pulling your product off the shelf. You need to contact us when you're formulating your product, when you're coming up with that manufacturing agreement, so we can help you determine where you're going to put that product at the end. We can help you come up with your Goldilocks product on the front end.